Is Pac-Mania running wild? Or does a poor screen kill the overall experience? Hey guys, MichaelBtheGameGenie here. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Pac-Mania Bandai Namco Legacy Edition cabinet from Arcade1Up, and I'm going to tell you more about it right after this. So that's right guys, today I'm going to be taking a look at the Pac-Mania Legacy Edition cabinet from Arcade1Up. I originally had no intention of getting this cabinet as it did come out with last year's Legacy line, and specifically the set of cabinets that were fraught with issues from having a bad screen or a badly lit monitor. However, this cabinet did go on sale over Christmas for $2.99 Canadian, which if you do the math works out to be about $200 US, and I couldn't not take the chance on it. Anyways, before we get into that, I want to say thank you so much everybody for watching, guys. I always appreciate the support. If this is your first time to the channel, you like what you see, go ahead, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, all that YouTube stuff. So here it is, guys, the Arcade1Up Pac-Mania Legacy Edition cabinet. This is your first look at the cabinet in my game room. I've had the cabinet for almost 6 months now. I got it this past Christmas for $2.99 when it was on a major sale from Best Buy, and I actually wasn't sure if I was going to do any coverage on it at all. However, with the recent shopping channel sale, this cabinet is back up at full price and including a bunch of stickers so you can design it yourself. So I thought now would be a great time to take a look at the cabinet for anybody considering the TSC deal and see if the cabinet's a good fit for you. One thing I want to give Arcade1Up credit for with this line of legacy cabinets, they spared no expense when it came to the form factor. As we've known in the past, Arcade1Up usually find one set form factor for their cabinets and then pigeonhole every design onto it, like we saw back in the days of the shark fin design. But with this line of legacy cabinets, we got 3 distinct form factors. This one tries to recreate the original form factor from the Pac-Mania cab, and it does a pretty good job of replicating that in the 3/4 scale. In terms of art, this cabinet is relatively plain, as it's a plain blank side with one art piece on it. However, the good thing is this art piece is actually pretty incredible. It has this really cool anime style Pac-Man with a lot of nonsense going on the side. The actual art piece is absolutely beautiful. It's well drawn. It's not pixelated. Arcade1Up did a really good job replicating this piece of art. One thing you will actually notice with the art piece on the side is it's actually lower on the cabinet than it is on the original arcade. On the original arcade, the art is actually closer up to the screen. Here, it's a little bit lower on the control panel. This is obviously a concession that had to be made due to the width of the cabinet in the 3/4 scale. There just wasn't enough room to show the art in the correct aspect ratio, and if they had to change it, it would have been too small on the side panel, so moving it down was a reasonable concession. However, you do want these arcades to be as close to the original as possible. One change I absolutely love that they made with this cabinet compared to the original arcade is the trim that they put on the cabinet. If you look at the original, it actually has black T-molding. Here they went with a red trim, and it absolutely pops against the white side panels. Moving on to the Marquee, and this is where this cab starts to disappoint a little bit, as this Marquee is in the old style light box. So we know the problems that generally come with this style of Marquee from Arcade1Up. The Marquee has good light distribution and pretty good coloring. However, it is a cheaper quality vinyl over the top, so you will notice some light bleed and hot spots where you can see the LED strips underneath. Unfortunately, where this is a dark colored Marquee, that is going to be apparent. As always, we wish that Arcade1Up would use a better quality sticker or vinyl lay-on with these Marquees so this stops happening. But probably the most disappointing thing about the Marquee included here is the fact that it's not arcade accurate. I don't know where they got the idea or design for this Marquee. Maybe this is what Bandai Namco pictures as a modern version of a Pac-Mania Marquee, but if you take a look at the original Marquee, it was actually special and unique, as it had a 3D Marquee where the text actually bounced off the Marquee and had a much cleaner and nicer look, in my opinion. If you do plan on picking up this arcade and you're like me, you want something closer to the original, head on over to Zedos Arcade. They actually have slip-on Arcade1Up covers that you can get to go over the original Lightbox Marquees, and here you will find a Pac-Mania one that is done like the original, with the graphics on it to make it look like it is 3D, just unlike the original Marquee. This is definitely one you should consider upgrading due to the poor quality and the fact that it doesn't replicate the original Marquee. Next up, I do want to spread some positivity here because Arcade1Up with this line of legacy cabinets have included the faux coin door on each one, and as I've said before, I think this may be one of the best improvements that Arcade1Up have made to their cabinets in terms of aesthetic in recent years. This definitely helps blur the line between toy arcade and real arcade just a little bit to fool yourself with the illusion that this is more than what it is. I think the only real improvement that I would suggest here is I wish that they actually include some kind of light source behind the actual coin doors themselves to give that illusion just like the real arcade. However, I do understand there's additional costs. Now, some arcades also have push button options where you can push the coin in. Those are cool. I don't know if they're necessary at this level, and I don't feel like increasing the price point on these cabs more to include that. I just wish these came with a light up option. Moving down to the riser, and like most people, I think we're done with risers at this point, but I will give Arcade1Up credit with this riser as it doesn't do the mix-match crisscross pattern they usually do with their risers. This one, in fact, does keep the same coloring as the arcade itself, so it blends in pretty well. Of course, it does have some additional unnecessary art, but it doesn't look too bad. Moving on to the control panel, and I want to give Arcade1Up credit here because they did try to recreate the arcade control panel, keep that arcade accuracy here with the actual Pac-Mania level design on the control panel. It's really nice, but at the same time, it's a little busy for my taste. I'm a huge fan of the standard Pac-Man control panel art, and I would much rather seen something like that. I know I pride myself on wanting these arcades to be accurate. I just think this looks a little bit weird. Now, while I did say they were trying to be arcade accurate here, there is one area they definitely missed, and that is the original arcade had sort of a waterfall deck thing where the art extended past the top of the control panel and over onto the side. They did not replicate that here, instead deciding to end the art at the top of the control panel, and then underneath, they have this weird little branded section. I don't think it looks bad, but obviously I would have liked to see the art continue. When talking about the buttons and sticks on the control panel, it's Arcade1Up. These are the same buttons and sticks they've been using for years. The stick feels okay and it'll get the job done. The buttons are mushy, but honestly, these controls work for these games. I don't notice a difference. They're not arcade quality, but they will get the job done. The only thing I do really want to mention from the buttons is the fact that they have included a live button, which we have seen from all these Wi-Fi connected cabinets from Arcade1Up. Now, typically, this button does a lot of cool things, like it'll let you pause the game to check your online features, or pause to go back to the menu so you can select another game. Unfortunately, this live button seemingly does nothing because once you're in game, the button becomes inactive, and if you want to go back to the menu to choose another game, you will have to hold down the player 1 button for 3 to 5 seconds like you traditionally do. So essentially, the live button does nothing. And now we move on to the screen, and this is where this review will fall completely apart, unfortunately, because we have talked about these legacy line of cabs. I never got a chance to review the Centipede, but I did review the Mortal Kombat 30th cab, and I did tell you that that screen was absolutely terrible. It was good straight on or from a specific side, but the viewing angle got really bad when you were viewing it from the right side of the cabinet. Here with the Pac-Mania cabinet, not even that stays true, and this may in fact be one of the worst screens I've ever seen in a home arcade product. Now, most people will say the problem with this monitor is that Arcade1Up used a TN monitor instead of an IPS BOE monitor. However, that's only partially true, because the biggest problem is in fact that this TN monitor has this terrible edge-lit backlighting that only shines from certain sides, creating terrible washout when viewing on certain angles, and also creating a problem where the black levels never really get to the point where you want to see them. Here with this specific model, that edge lighting comes from the bottom of the screen, instead of with the Mortal Kombat where the edge lighting is on the left side, so you have at least one good side for viewing. This one is on the bottom, so that means that both from the left side and the right side, you will get that discolorization and washout no matter what you do. You literally have to be dead on to enjoy this game with decent coloring and no washout. Of course, earlier I mentioned the black levels never get to the point where you want them, and that is even true when you're looking at it exactly dead on. The black never seems to be as black as it should be. It always has this shade of gray. And of course, when you're playing Pac-Man games where the screen is predominantly black, or Galaga where the screen is predominantly black, it will bother you if the black looks slightly gray. Another small issue that I want to bring up with the screen is if you look on the edges of the screen while in gameplay, you will notice that the game doesn't extend right to the edges, and there are these tiny black bars on the side. That's because this TN monitor is in fact a 5x4 monitor, whereas the Arcade1Up Pac-Man games have traditionally been shown on a 4x3 BOE or IPS monitor. So in order to keep the same aspect ratio, what they did here was apply these black lines to the side so the screen doesn't actually fill up completely. While it's not a huge deal, it may bother some people, but luckily the bezel is also black, so it blends in a little bit. And last but not least, if you're not distracted enough by the absolutely wretched screen that you're looking at, you may fail to notice the surrounding of the screen, the bezel, and while it looks okay, and it's got, colorful Pac-Man characters on it, it isn't arcade accurate. I think they did this because if you look at the actual original bezel, it's not exactly the most aesthetically pleasing. However, again, I do say, with these 3/4 scale arcade recreations, I want them to be as close to arcade accurate as possible, and this one decided to go in a different direction. One thing that I'm extremely happy to see on this cabinet, which is a definite upgrade from last year's Bandai Namco Legacy cabinet, is the fact that this one is actually online. With Wi-Fi connectivity, that will allow for online updates, which we've already seen happen to this cab once the app was announced and some slight changes were made. But the biggest piece that I'm very excited about is the ability to track online leaderboards and compare your scores against everybody else that has an online enabled Pac-Man cabinet. And the cool thing is you can see how many different variations of Pac-Man Arcade1Up have released even since they've added Wi-Fi, because when you go in and look at the different player scores, there's also an icon next to that person's name to show you which cabinet they have, so you can compare your score to that person and the cabinet that they're playing on. Of course, speaking of upgrades compared to the Legacy, we also have to talk about the game lineup. Last year's Legacy had 12 games. This year's Legacy comes with 14 included Bandai Namco arcade classics. So we get 2 additional new games. The lineup is pretty much exactly the same as last year's Legacy cab, except we now get 2 additional games. Rolling Thunder, which is a fun action platforming game that you can play on the cabinet. However, it is a horizontal screen game, so keep in mind it will be relatively small. The actual play area is about 13 inches, so it's the same as having a 13-inch color monitor in there to play the game on. But Rolling Thunder is badass, and you should still have a lot of fun with it. And last but not least is Galaga 88. For TurboGrafx 16 fans, you may know this one as Galaga 90 on the TurboGrafx 16. This is an updated version of Galaga. It has some chibi-inspired art styles in there for the characters. It's a fun update. I still prefer the original Galaga, but this one's pretty good too. Getting back to the other games, this one has pretty much every Pac-Man game ever made, with the exception of Miss Pac-Man. I know people are still out there waiting for that dual cab with both Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man. Hopefully one day it comes, but this cab isn't it. But if you're looking for anything else, they have it on this. Of course, the title game is Pac-Mania. It's a weird modern version of Pac-Man where they wanted to make it look more like it was 3D, hence the 3D Marquee. So what they did was they've delivered Pac-Man in an isometric style, a lot more color, a lot more variety. The game plays relatively well. It adds a new bounce mechanic where you can jump over characters. For me, I still prefer original Pac-Man. I find Pac-Mania really hard to get into, especially after playing a couple of rounds of Pac-Man. It feels like a different style. You have to move your controller different, but it's still really good. Then, of course, we have the icon, the king of the arcades, Pac-Man, one of my favorite games of all time. I have a lot of fun with this version. I can't get to the same place I used to be able to all the way back on my 40th anniversary Pac-Man in terms of my score, so I got a lot more practicing to do, but I'm having fun going back, trying to up my score, and taking a look at the much better players online in the leaderboards. You can also play Dig Dug, which is an arcade classic. I really like this game as well, and it makes sense because the sister cabinet to this one, the cabinet that was reskinned with the Dig Dug art, also has Dig Dug. This is a fun game, a lot of fun to get used to. Just don't play Dig Dug too much. It's on the cabinet, but it sucks. Play the original Dig Dug. And the last game I really want to highlight is, of course, Galaga. Who doesn't love Galaga? Galaxian may have been the original, that was the Space Invaders clone, but Galaga took it to an absolutely new and more exciting place. I love Galaga. It's so much fun to get my ship caught, get the dual ships, and just blow everything completely out of the water. I find the game plays really well here, the emulation's really good, the sound's really good. I think you guys will love Galaga. So guys, that's my look at the Arcade1Up Pac-Mania Bandai Namco Legacy Edition cabinet, and I have to say, I like this cabinet, warts and all. It has a fantastic games list with 14 arcade classics from Bandai Namco's legacy, some of the best arcade games of all time, and they all look and play like they should. On top of that, you're now adding online leaderboards, which adds a new element to score chasing and replayability. On top of that, the cabinet just looks great. The art is fantastic, and the white and red trim is something unique and will look great in your game room. However, where it all falls apart is with the screen, because like I said, this may be the worst screen that they've ever put in a home arcade product, and it's so hard to see past that. For people that are looking at the new $4.99 Pac-Mania cab on the shopping channel, keep in mind, no amount of stickers will fix this screen. Now you're probably saying, Mike, if you're so down on the screen, how can you like this cabinet? Keep in mind that I paid $2.99 Canadian for it. Keep in mind that's also $200 US. So discounted at this highly discounted price, I think I made a pretty good purchase and I'm happy with it. However, at full price, $4.99 US, I would not recommend you guys getting this, especially when the deluxe model is already out, has a much better screen, plus is more arcade accurate and has that cool tilted screen. If you're going to pay full price for a Pac-Man cabinet, you want a Pac-Man cabinet, just get the Pac-Man Deluxe cabinet. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments, what do you think of the Pac-Mania Bandai Namco Legacy Edition from Arcade1Up? If you've picked one up or its sister cabinet, Dig Dug, let me know what you think of it. Are you as happy with the art, the games list, all that stuff as I am? Or does the screen completely kill the experience like it does for so many others? Do you think the screen is as bad as I'm saying? Or do you think I'm just going a little bit too far with it? Anyways, let me know in the comments. I always appreciate your feedback. Thank you so very much for watching, guys. This is Michael B. the Game Genie. I'll talk to you next time.